Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's July 26, 2020. It's time for another garden tour. So I thought what I'd do is throw the helmet cam on and we'll take a walk through the gardens and give you an update on the progress. So here we go. Okay, we'll take a look at the western garden plot as usual first. You may be able to see some of the small blue Hubbard squash starting to develop here all along in this area. They're really overtaking quite a bit of the garden here. See down in here, there's several of them. Not sure if you can see them very well, but there's a whole bunch. Here's one on the outside here, another one over there as well. They're climbing up over the kennel panels. I think that these the scarlet red runner beans along the perimeter here are doing a little bit better since having the wood chip mulch here that we talked about in the last video. I had to do a little bit of pruning this morning in this area. Been busy on other projects. Thea's been harvesting a lot of the gooseberries right now. They've really turned out to be delicious. So this time of year right now, it's gooseberries, blueberries, mulberries. You can see over there the ladders for the mulberry tree. And so when Thea's off, she's out here harvesting berries. It's berry picking every day. Berry picking, cucumbers, kale, those sorts of things. So over here, the Acer red cabbage are still doing really well. Heads are developing quite nicely. Last time I talked about the cauliflower, there's probably about 5 heads that will develop potentially. The rest I'm going to end up clearing out of here. Cabbage moth there. And we do have another little predator that's taking care of some of the problems. A great big beautiful spider. Right here, he's just waiting for the opportunity. Really beneficial. The spiders, the snakes in the gardens are absolutely wonderful. So the lupine are doing okay. I haven't watered them. I came down and did a little bit of stirrup hoe or oscillating hoe, weeding up against the building. Still have to weed some of the quackgrass that's starting around the lupine. The scarlet red runners down here are doing pretty darn well. Again, the blue Hubbard squash, they're going every place in here right now. The thornless blackberries, I took out the 2 pots. I've got them hanging right there. And I'll go ahead, possibly in the next week, go ahead and start potting up some of these other ones and adding soil to the rest of the ones. The honeydew and cantaloupe that are underneath here are struggling, but they're making their way around. But these blue Hubbards, I forgot how prolific they are. There's some pretty good size squash underneath down in here. And as you can see, that the whole area is just completely covered with the blue Hubbards. So we'll walk back around here. It's really difficult to actually see some of the honeydews and the but I can see the leaves for these are honeydews right in here. Do I see any of the melons from the honeydew or the cantaloupe? I haven't seen them yet, but they're developing underneath everything. The blueberry bushes are doing really well. I ended up damaging a couple of them by pulling out the weeds. Like here, I ripped off a few of the small branches coming off of these blueberry plants here. But all in all, I'm pretty happy how much they've recovered since the winter. They're looking pretty darn good. Not sure why this one isn't looking quite as well. But let's go over to the central garden plot and see how things are going over there. I haven't spent much time with in the gardens this last week. with the exception of today going out and doing some weeding and putting down some cardboard in the central garden. And here we are at the central garden plot. So the corn, as you can see, is about 8 foot tall right now. They're doing really, really well. Nice tassels developing. Just the beginning of the corn cobs starting to develop on the system. And again, I think this is going to work out so much better with there just being single rows. The raccoons have been coming in here and climbing on some of them, the baby raccoons. The little Dickens. The tomato plants, we haven't had a chance to thin those out yet to try and get at some of the tomatoes underneath there, but they're not overly ripe. Here at the upper end, they're less mature. And you can see some of the San Marzano tomatoes developing. Down below, they're much more plump. Some of the banana peppers are all developing nicely down here. They're all starting. So they're looking good. Not much bud or flower development yet on the broccoli, but the plants are looking great. Looks like there's this one's one of the banana peppers as opposed to the bell, so I don't know why there was a banana. You can see a little bit of difference between the bell and the banana peppers here. Got a little bit more weeding to do in here. The kale, we've been eating that like crazy, but we're producing more than what we can consume. Now, last week, the last video that I posted, I talked about how the deer had gotten in here, and they had actually mowed down some of this end of the sweet potato vines. That had all grown back, but that very night the deer came in, jumped the fence, and ate all of this right down to just about nothing, with the exception of a couple of stringers out here. And this has all grown back this week, so I think that this is going to do really well. There were weeds growing up along in here. I broke down a couple of cardboard boxes and laid them down here to suppress weed development in between the sweet potato vines coming off of here. And I'll try and redirect these, but the heat of the black mats doesn't seem to be detrimental to the development of the vines to the sweet potatoes. They seem to be doing okay, so I'm happy with regards to that. So I'm going to have to pull some of these back because they are making their way all along in here, and they'll go right through to the other side. And of course that'll cool the whole underside down quite a bit. I should have done this earlier when I was out here. But so what I ended up doing for trying to deter the deer from coming in, I just took some These are the stretching bars for chain link fencing. So this is what holds the chain link fencing close to the posts at each end. These are 6-footers, and I just took some 3/4 inch tees, took some paracord, ran it through there, and put some nice white trail marking tape on here. And that seems to be keeping the deer from jumping the fence now, where they were just popping over it earlier before I had this up. So Central Garden, I'd say, is doing fantastic. Glad I took care of those weeds. We have a shortage of cardboard now with this whole infection going around. Now we'll head over to the Eastern Garden plot. I had to do some more weeding over there. I'll just show you that right now before we go to the Eastern Garden plot. But the asparagus bed. So this time of year, we let the asparagus develop completely and get seed development. I over soaked the seeds that grew before, so I'll have to reseed in this whole area. So I still got some more lamb's quarter down in here, but these are the asparagus when they get mature, and we'll start seeing some of the seed developing very soon, probably in the next week or two. I could see just a few seeds starting now, the fruit, and these will be just loaded, and in a couple months that'll be bright red color. So there's the asparagus plants all along in here. So I'm going to try and keep this clean, and you can see I pulled quite a few weeds, quackgrass out of this area. But that's one thing I worked on yesterday. And head over to the Eastern Garden plot. We're supposed to get some rain tomorrow, or thunderstorms, so hopefully we'll get some. And that will help out quite a bit. So I had to come in here, and the last video I showed that we had weeds developing all down because so much of this wood chips was developing into soil here. So I did some weeding this morning. There's still a few bits and pieces of quackgrass in here. I'll have to come back and get some more of it. And the red runner, scarlet red runner beans are doing pretty well considering all the heat that we've had. I really would like to get more wood chips so I can cover up the soil a bit better. The kale, Thea came out and weeded it since the last video, so that's doing much better. The kale's looking great so far. The oriental eggplants are doing pretty darn well. And of course these Black Beauty eggplants are developing nicely as well. So we got some nice eggplants developing on there, showing up. The jalapeno peppers still flowering, still producing more peppers as well. I still have to weed over in this area and pick up the rocks and sticks from mounding up the blue potatoes in here. Of course, there's this purslane around here. We never have a shortage of it. It's really delicious as well. But so far so good with the blue potatoes. So I'm pretty happy with those. The dill, Thea's been using that for our harvesting this regularly for all of the pickling that she's been doing. She's been getting lots and lots of pickles. I'm sure everyone's getting those this time of year. The sage are really doing quite well. These plants are looking quite beautiful. Just love the smell of the sage. And again, the scarlet red runner beans. The stalks for the all of the lettuce that was here and the spinach, they're all breaking down. The microorganisms are feeding on those parts. So that's working pretty well. So the butternut squash, what we talked about before, I think I just got a bad lot of these that just are not producing very well. The Georgia sweet candy squash, they're doing extremely well. They're planted on the other side, and you can see they're climbing right up over the trellis. The cucumbers, they're producing like crazy. Lots and lots of cucumbers coming out of here. There's some more spearmint making its way over here. Got to get rid of that. And the sage over here is doing really well underneath here. There's a little bit of Pennsylvania smartweed. I'll leave a couple of those over in here. Thea harvested a bunch of the cucumbers this morning. And although we didn't get many of the, I'm not sure what happened to the rest of the Georgia candy squash here, because they were planted along in here and they just didn't take off, and I don't know for certain why. But the other ones are doing quite well. I've got to do more weeding. Here's an example of the Pennsylvania smartweed. You'll see that preferentially the Japanese beetles, and there's a pair right there, go right for this Pennsylvania smartweed. So I try to leave some around the areas where the Japanese beetle might be going for the crops that we want to keep and maintain. Have to get in here. There's some purslane and a little bit of quackgrass over in this area. The chili peppers doing very, very well. The cauliflower, like before, really not doing very well here. I'm probably going to just cut those off and leave the roots in the ground. The red onions are doing great. I do have to do some more weeding in here and see how the bulbs are developing very, very nicely. The oh dang it, I pulled off the wrong one. Here we are, right down in there. So the strawberry runners, see, came out and watered those this morning. I should make up some more trays so I can get some more runners started over here for transplanting over into the other strawberry bed. But the basil's going crazy. There are some kidney beans planted in between here as well. Again, onions looking great, and I need to do some weeding over there. Just getting behind on some of these projects. Difficult to not step on some of the vines here. So you can see some of the watermelons are starting to develop here. We got a bunch of watermelons started. These are cantaloupes right in here. Let's see if we can see any of the cantaloupes. Again, leaving some of the Pennsylvania smartweed right here, and that's where the Japanese beetles go for. It's from an observation a while back. So there's a honeydew down there. One there. They are developing. They just blend in so much, it's hard to see them. I'm sorry, those are cantaloupes. Here's the honeydews down here. There. And small watermelons starting to develop in here. So pretty happy with how all of these fruits are doing. The sage and thyme over here and lavender are all doing pretty well. Again, around the irises, we need to do lots of weeding in here and pull those buggers out. Dang it. So that's a look at the gardens. I'm pretty happy with most of them. I can see that we didn't leave adequate room, as I should have known from when we grew them up in the third food forest, the blue Hubbard squash and the the sweet Georgia candy squash. They really get quite large and can take up a tremendous amount of area, especially if you have them as densely oriented, in other words, so closely together, especially with other, potentially competing plants. So those honeydews and cantaloupes are definitely getting really nice, nutritious soil. Are they getting as much sunlight exposure? It's going to take some time. It's still early for melon development and all. Over in the western garden plot, the watermelons and the cantaloupe and the honeydew, I think they're doing pretty darn well. In the, I'm sorry, that was the eastern garden plot. In the western garden plot here, The other thing I'd say that I'm having a bit of a hard time with is I never got down extra weed mat or enough cardboard around where all the melons are and in the trellis area. So the trellis area is an area to keep up on, trying to because the wood chips are so mature now that we are getting weed development up in that area. So it requires extra time going and doing some weeding. Each time that I have to do a small amount of weeding in multiple locations, it all adds up. And those are the things I usually try to do first thing in the morning before the sun really gets out and cooks things, so that those roots and those delicate leaves are getting desiccated in the hot sun as well. The cauliflower over here in the west garden plot, we might get a couple of heads of cauliflower. I'm hoping in the central garden that we do get some broccoli. Again, this is an extraordinarily hot season this year, and still pretty darn dry despite getting that recent, last week, getting the rain that we did get. We just haven't gotten any since, but it did help out with all of the areas on the property. Blueberry plants, I think, are doing pretty darn well considering the challenges, you know, transplanting them again this season and having lost a couple of them because of, potentially because of the transplanting and because of the excessive heat. In the central garden, the corn is doing fantastic. The beans, I forgot to show those down before, they're developing down below. We're going to start separating those weed mats a little bit further, and I'll put some other seeds. Hopefully I'll do this. I'll put some other seeds, do another parallel line, and again, that's mainly as companion planting and for feeding the soil as well. So getting more, as much sunlight as hits those areas, we get the carbon sequestered into that soil, and we start getting those sugars, getting those microorganisms feeding the fungi as well. Tomatoes are looking great. We do need to do some pruning on those. The kale's been doing fantastic. The peppers are developing nicely. Over in the eastern garden plot, there's more maintenance to be done around the permanent raised beds. Those rumble wall blocks there. I went through with the weed whacker today and mowed that section because the soil has built up so much in that area that it doesn't get dried out like the other areas during these prolonged droughts. I think I'm going to end up taking down the trellis over in the eastern garden plot, the one that we would see the Georgia sweet candy squash going over. We have it tarped inside of it, so it's sort of wasted space. I haven't decided ultimately what I'll do with that area. I'm thinking about the area where we took out the large hugelkultur, deconstructed the large hugelkultur mound down and back. It'll be a couple years before I get the blueberries down in there. I still have to figure out, irrigation is set down there. Cover crops, I've got a plan for the cover crops. I'll go over that in another video. But I've still got a lot more raking. I've been raking and picking rocks down in that area. And it's just, in this heat, it's just a bit too much. But I've got to decide on what sort of deer fencing I'm going to put down there, because the deer love these blue Hubbard squash. So that area we're going to have to plan on getting fencing down there. That's going to be expense and time. So I'll have to decide about that. So we can get some of these other squashes out of these gardens and get other crops in that aren't as, don't require as much space to sprawl out and grow as well. I will try and post a video soon on the status of the garlic. Had really big challenges during this drought this year, the garlic and the shallots. I've got those being processed now, and I'll try to post a video on that soon as well. So all in all, I'm happy with the gardens. They're taking less work each time. The pest patrols that we've got right now is the best it's ever been. Dragonflies are in there all the time. We've got some nice spiders in there. I know that freaks some people out, but the spiders are doing good. And we have many different flycatchers, but I've got to say the best birds this year that I've seen that are constantly going in and picking out the pests, the insects in the garden, and those are the kingbirds. They are just amazing. They've got their second set of nestlings right now. So mom and dad are constantly going back and forth to those nests, taking out their waste and bringing in new insects for them to consume continuously, all day long. So that's an update on how things are doing. Oh, the honeyberries are also doing pretty well in this in the western garden plot. A little tongue-tied here. So that's an update on the gardens. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. If you find this of value, please give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends. By all means, folks, pay attention, learn as much as you can about gardening, grow some of your own food. I can't think of a better time at this point in time in your life to actually start seriously thinking about and planning doing some gardening. Even if you only have a little studio apartment, there are container gardens that can be done as well. Sorry about all the sweating, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Have a super fantastic day. Bye-bye now. Timmy, what are you doing there, handsome? You taking a nap? Oh boy. Oh, you're so cute.